Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. Today is July the 30th, 2026. We are just 12 days since the release of Christopher Nolan's Greek epic, The Odyssey, and it's already surpassed the $700 million mark. So its gross receipts so far is just over $727 million. Of course, most of its sales have come from the overseas market, right? And domestically, about 45% of its gross receipts from the theaters, from its domestic market. So Christopher Nolan, um, his movie is set, is already, it's already the fourth biggest grossing movie of the year. Uh, we're not yet into August, so it's already the fourth biggest grossing movie of the year. The others, number one is Toy Story 5, which was released in June. It was released in June, and that has about $1.02 billion in sales. And the others are the Super Mario Galaxy movie at over $1.001 billion, and Michael at $1.001 billion. Of course, Michael, the biopic about Michael Jackson, was produced, by the way, by a Black American, Antoine Fuqua. So, in case anybody's interested. Now, Antoine Fuqua is not the biggest selling Black American film director. People remember Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler is the director of the Black Panther franchise, and Black Panther, in case anybody wants to know, is the 21st biggest selling movie of all time. Right, 21st selling biggest movie of all time, and Ryan Coogler is the 45th highest grossing film director in history. So anyway, I'll get back to that. Let me get back to Christopher Nolan's financial success. Now, Christopher Nolan's success with the Odyssey is not, it's not, it doesn't make him a break, a new breakthrough director or anything like that. He was already a colossus in the film industry. In fact, Christopher Nolan is the fourth highest grossing film director of all time, and number one being Steven Spielberg, and number two, of course, being James Cameron, right? So James Cameron, by the way, has the highest uh, grossing movie of all time. That's Avatar. Number one, Avatar is the biggest selling movie of all time at over $2.9 billion, right? Over $2.9 billion. That's Avatar's number one. Number two is Avengers, right? One of the Avengers franchise at over $2.7 billion. Number three is Titanic, a movie by James Cameron again, right? So James Cameron has number one and number two, right? So Titanic is the third biggest selling movie of all time. That's over 2.3 billion or so. That's Titanic. And number four is James Cameron again with Avatar, like an Avatar sequel, The Way of Water. So note the number one, number three, and number four biggest selling movies of all time have the same director, James Cameron, right? For people who are interested in alternative careers, note that James Cameron, right, didn't go to college. For people who are bashing college these days, just trying to remind us that there are alternative careers. Do what you're passionate about, what you think you're very good at. James Cameron never went to college. He's a college dropout. He did take a few courses in community college. He took courses in physics, and he took courses in English. If you notice, he likes sci-fi, so he mixes the two. He wrote and directed the Terminator, that the movie that really made Arnold Schwarzenegger, right, a big movie star, the Terminator. So follow your passion, It's interesting that James Cameron was actually once a truck driver. He was a truck driver, and at night and in fact he was also a high school janitor. So he was a custodian. He cleaned schools, a high school, and was a truck driver. So something that you have to remember is there are people who make a certain job their career, that they get into a job and that's it. You can have a job and use it as a stepping stone. You're using it to pay the bills while you're pursuing your dream job, your dream career. So James Cameron drove trucks, cleaned a school janitor, cleaned schools as a janitor, and then he spent lots of time in the library of University of Southern California, studying film technology. And you see, he turned his passion into huge success later on. He's a billionaire today. That's James Cameron. He's a billionaire today, and he did that without a college degree, without going into a fancy career like investment banking or law. So there are alternatives, right? You can feed your creative enterprise. I mentioned Ryan Coogler. Uh, Ryan Coogler himself, he went to University of Southern California. He got a degree from there. And I was reading about him, and he mentioned how he was he was over $200,000 in school debt, right? By the time he went to college and he graduated. But he went to an excellent school that exposed him to um, they have a great filming department, and it exposed him to networks like George Lucas, right? So George Lucas is a graduate of an alumnus uh, of University of Southern California. So George Lucas, by the way, is also a billionaire. He was the producer of the successful, Star Wars, original Star Wars, right? So he's a billionaire. So education can help you, right? Don't just write it off. Education can help you, and today Ryan Coogler, who had been over $200,000 in debt from college, is worth at between 25 to 35 million dollars. He's just about 40 years old, right? And his movies, of course, they've sold over $1 billion, billions of dollars. He's ranked as the 45th biggest grossing film director of all time. Now you can see he's more into living a legacy and the quality of the work, right? And being a billionaire is not his goal, right? There are other billionaires out there, the Steven Spielbergs, James Cameron, like I said, and George Lucas. There are other directors out there who are billionaires. But do what you're passionate about, and be try and be noted, have a mark of distinction, right? Be excellent in what it is you do. So long as you're not starving, right? Ryan Coogler is not starving. He's doing a fantastic job. Now back to Christopher Nolan's, record-breaking, The Odyssey. It's projected that The Odyssey is going to hit the billion dollar mark by next week, right? In another week, it should surpass $1 billion. Again, it's already at over $727 million, and so it's not yet opened in China, right? China, it's supposed to open in China on the 14th of August. For anybody who doesn't know, China actually has the second largest movie-going market in the world. America has the largest theatrical box office market in the world at about $8.9 billion in revenues a year. China's number two at about $7.4 billion a year. And just for anybody who cares to know, Nigeria is actually one of the biggest filmmaking industries in the world. Nigeria, of course, the largest in terms of production output is Bollywood, the India market, right? The India film industry has the largest outputs per, they release about 2,500 feature films a year, and Nigeria's number two in terms of production output. So Nigeria is has one of the biggest film industries in the world, and it dominates, the African market. So the creative industries, for people who are interested in alternatives, in success, in Nigeria, people should, can continue to focus on the creative industry and have an alternative source of income like James Cameron had. He was a truck driver. Nigerians who can be cab drivers, or they could be transporters during the day while they feed their passion for the creative industries, right? Apart from Nollywood, I know Nigeria also has the music industry, right? So just food for thought. Now, so Christopher Nolan is set to score bigger success once the movie is released in China, again, which is the second largest movie going market in the world, on August the 14th. Now, by the way, I was mentioning the biggest selling movies of all time. China actually has the fifth biggest selling movie of all time. It's called Neja, right? Neja. It's an animated Chinese animated film, and so it's the fifth biggest selling movie of all time. So interestingly, since I mentioned Nigeria, the sixth biggest selling movie of all time is a Star Wars franchise, and the star who acted as Luke, was it Luke Skywalker, was a British Nigerian, John Boyega. So very impressive. Nigerians are doing interesting things in the creative arts, right? So there are alternatives, right, to path to success. If you don't think that you have the finances or resources to to go to college, of course, that's not an excuse. If you're American, you can always explore the gigantic, very rewarding film industry, right? The creative arts. So I'm very happy for Christopher Nolan. It's projected that his movie, The Odyssey, is going to, its final gross receipts will place it in the top 13 biggest movies of all time, right? That it is expected that it should ultimately earn about over $1.65 billion, right? Over $1.65 billion in ticket sales, which would put it in the top 13 biggest movies of all time. Just looking at the financial receipts for the Odyssey, Christopher Nolan is getting a lot of critical reviews, critical praise. Everybody's talking about the Odyssey. People who are they're for it, and people who think that he's been excessive in its creative liberties. Some people who think he's created a woke rendition of Homer's poem, but nevertheless he's smiling all the way to the bank. By the way, his earlier successes with The Dark Knight, his biggest movie so far is The Dark Knight Rises, I think, with over $1.08 billion. And after that is The Dark Knight itself, at just over $1.008. Something about that 8 sticks with Christopher Nolan, doesn't it? 0.8. Interestingly, one of the biggest selling movies of all time is the James Bond franchise, Skyfall. I think it's in the top 40, right? If you care to know. Anyway, I thought I would just give you an update regarding Christopher Nolan's remarkable financial success with The Odyssey. My name's Olorotimi Osha. I'll keep you posted. Thank you.